Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this webinar titled Selling Your Practice Before Brexit. My name is Arun Mehra, and I'm sure some of you may have seen me do some webinars over the last few years. We've done quite a few. It seems to be a very popular format, especially at 8 o'clock in the evening. Firstly, I'd like to welcome everybody from wherever you are watching this webinar, and I hope you've had a wonderful summer. Whether it's here in the UK or whether you've been far afield. My summer was an action-packed adventure with my children, my wife. Most of the time, or a lot of the time, spent around in my camper van travelling around Ireland. But now I'm back on safe ground, back in Surrey, and we're in the throes of a very busy quarter, helping people with their accountancy services, raising finance, and of course, selling practices and helping people buy practices. So obviously we're at a very topical time in the market. There isn't a newspaper that doesn't have something about Brexit every day. And hence this idea of a webinar kind of emanated from, well, what if you wanted to sell your practice before Brexit? And we've been talking to a number of people looking to sell their practice in the last year or two. And for some, they're thinking, well, maybe I should sell it beforehand. And others are thinking, oh, well, this webinar is a little bit about Brexit, a lot about what you should be thinking about if you're wanting to sell your practice, irrespective of Brexit or not. And really about kind of trying to get your practice ready for sale, whenever that may well be. So let me crack on. Let's see how we're getting on. Okay. So, as I said, my name's Aaron, and I've been in the dental industry for the last 15 years. Actually, 15 or 16 years. I'm a trained chartered accountant. I run a firm of accountants called Samara. We deal with literally probably about 350 dentists nationally, and we're growing. We're also practice brokers, so we help people buy and sell practices. And of course, we are FCA regulated, so we help people raise finance as well. And how did I get into dentistry? Well, I married a dentist 17 years ago. So I've got a fair track record, and this dentist who I learned all my ideas and thoughts on, Smita, she is a very active, hands-on principal with multiple sites here in the southeast. So I've got a lot of experience, and personally I've been involved in many transactions, whether it's single surgery purchases or sale, all the way to group purchases and sales. So there isn't much I haven't seen, and fortunately I have a very good network to help people when they're in that situation. So what's going on? Brexit. Well, as I said, there is so much stuff going on, and whatever your political persuasion, whether you agree with it or not, and I'm not going to get into that tonight, there are certain things that must be considered. So there is one option that's been banded around is a no deal, okay, or alternatively a very bad deal. And the more you read and the more you see in the papers, the more depressing it can get if there's no deal. And even today, I think Theresa May is mentioning that if there's a no deal, we won't be paying the £39 billion that we have to pay the EU. It's just going from bad to worse at the moment, and until we have something of solid nature, we don't know what's going to happen. But if you just think about the consequences of a no deal, I've just put some key points here which I think could have an impact on the market. So if there's a no deal situation, there's the potential for the pound to weaken against the euro and other currencies. This then makes imports more expensive, hence inflation will rise. The only real tool that a government has in terms of managing inflation is by changing the interest rate. So the likely scenario is interest rates will actually rise. Okay, with a rise in interest rates, obviously borrowing becomes more expensive. So if you're borrowing to buy a house, buying a dental practice, even on a credit card, that will become more expensive. And as borrowing goes up, the risk is practice values will fall. And why will that be? Because banks are unlikely to lend, because it's a riskier scenario, okay? or they'll want more collateral, they'll want more security, so people may not have that. And hence, the risk is that practice values will fall. Now, to counter that, the argument could be presented that there's still such a demand for practices. There are more and more groups coming to the marketplace, more and more individuals who want dental practice, so that will keep practice values high, and that may well be the case. But what I've seen, perhaps in the last 3 to 6 months, is there is a little bit of hesitation. Deals are taking longer to come about. Values are certainly strong still, but certainly people are holding off and I suppose, what's the word? Making sure they're getting good value for money when they're buying their practice or offering for a practice. Now, the other option is if a deal does happen, and hopefully if a deal happens, it's a positive deal for the UK economy. The positive side is hopefully the market values will remain static. There will still be demand for practices, and quality practices will still sell. Okay. And that's will be the positive side. But my view is that there is demand. Values will still stay resilient. Okay. But if we do get a no deal situation, okay, the uncertainty will have a knock-on effect, not just on dentistry, but on the wider economy. Okay. And therefore, when there's uncertainty, things drop in value, such as property, such as business value, and sentiment overrides everything else. So it's very important to think, okay, how am I going to plan my exit? And you may think, you know what, I don't want to sell immediately after Brexit. If the market does drop significantly, you may want to hold on. Okay, so it's worth just considering that. So, what should you do if you're thinking of selling? Do you sell now, or do you wait and see what happens? My view, in truth, would be, well, if you're looking to sell, it's probably worth making sure your practice is in order. Okay, we're in September time now. Any transaction that's going to happen is unlikely to get completed by March 29th next year. Why do I say that? I just know how long transactions take. NHS transactions are taking forever. CQC are taking forever. Certain deals will happen faster if they're private and there's no NHS element in it, the leases are organised and property issues are resolved, then certainly deals can happen quicker. But quite a few deals that you're thinking you may sell now may not even happen until end of March, okay, or post-March. So should you sell now? Okay, well, maybe, okay. Or should you wait and see what happens? Maybe. Sorry, there's no definitive answer in that respect. But let me paint a picture and hopefully you'll understand the market a little bit better as I go through these slides. So each year, in the last few years, approximately 700 practices come to the market in the UK, out of a market of around 12,500 dental practices across the UK. So there's a decent number of transactions occurring each year. Some are very small. I'd say the vast majority of practice sales are quite small. For Samara, we have about almost 4,000 registered buyers, and we have most of the corporates which are growing in size, and the number of corporates are growing in size, are registered with us, and we help them acquire if there's deemed to be a suitable practice for them. I think we're seeing more and more corporates emerge, small corporates turning into medium-sized corporates, turning into larger corporates. And I can see this trend occurring further and further. All the buyers that we deal with, okay, if they're looking to buy a practice that we're trying to sell, are certainly scrutinised to make sure that they can afford a practice they're looking to buy and they meet certain criteria that the seller may have set. So all buyers are certainly scrutinised for that. And as I mentioned, it's an active market. Now, why is it an active market? Well, the NHS contracts are seen as a positive, especially if they're deemed as evergreen. So they keep, they'll go on into perpetuity, but that's what they're perceived to be anyway. So people have those contracts coming through. There's an ageing UK population. and there's increasing awareness of good dental hygiene and good retention of patients. The market is growing still. The market is only 15% owned by corporates like Bupa and My Dentist and smaller corporates, Portman out there. And there's growth in other private services that you can sell, whether it's implants, Invisalign, whitening, etc. So there's definitely an opportunity out there just in the general market to offer dental services. And I have to say, maybe once a month, once every 3 weeks, I do get a call from a new potential investor who wants to buy into dentistry. They see an opportunity in it, and they all think it's where it's easy money to be made. The truth of the matter, as I'm sure most of you know, it's not that easy to make money. It's hard work to run a dental clinic. It's hard work to build a dental clinic and build a dental business. I know that from personal experience, since working with my wife to build her clinics, the Neem Tree. And so certainly, whilst these investors see it's rich pickings, I think most dentists and people in the dental industry realise how hard it actually is. In terms of the market, the other point to look at is there are a shortage of groups out there. There aren't that many dental groups out there that have over 20 odd practices. So when they do have over 20 practices, there's certainly a price on premium being paid for these groups. So one group will buy another group out and pay a big multiple for it. And currently we're seeing market values at around 5 to 6 times EBITDA. EBITDA being earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization, basically a measure of cash profit for each practice. However, if you've got a group, and let's say you had a group of, say, 8 to 10 practices, quite possibly you would then be able to get a multiple much higher than 5 to 6, but maybe even greater than 10. So for investors who are looking to get into the market, and who've got the funding in place, dentistry is seen as a safe bet. People will have teeth, people will always have teeth problems, and there's a growth opportunity by selling implants and whitening and hygiene and Invisalign. Hence, that's definitely an interest for investors to actually get into the dental market. And I still think, Brexit or no Brexit, the exposure to the dental market because of Brexit is somewhat limited. Certainly dentists have to import a lot of materials, a lot of equipment, so there could be some issues there. But as we said, the demand for dental services is unprecedented. Not unprecedented, but I suppose it is unprecedented. It's growing. It's still growing. So that's where the opportunity really still is out there. So when it comes to the banks, we deal with all major high street banks and more who are active in the dental space, and my team of finance guys are very active in helping people borrow money for buying practices, and they have a very good appetite to lend in the dental sector. If Brexit comes in and throws a spanner in the works, then maybe they will review their situation. But for the last few years, it's been a very active space, and most of the key banks love dentists, love dental practices, and enjoy lending to that sector. Typically, they will lend anything between 70 and 95% of the goodwill price, and quite often or not, they will lend up to 100% of the freehold value if a freehold is being purchased. However, every case is different, every situation is different, every person is different, and every deal is different. So it's well worth, if you're looking to acquire a practice, talking to our finance team, who can certainly point you in the right direction and work out how much you can borrow and for what will that buy you effectively in the marketplace. In terms of the contracts, like the NHS contracts, these evergreen contracts, as we're calling them, they certainly provide downside protection for any investors. Why? Because there's no date ending the contract. However, we're seeing recently the orthodontic contracts that are being emerging now for intenders, they all have a set date. So who knows how governments act and how they react. Another positive of these contracts is that contracts provide positive cash flow. The only downside is if you don't meet the contract, the NHS will want their money back, and they usually want it back pretty quickly, not over a space of 12 months, but they'll say we want it back and we want it by this date. So If you don't perform in your contracts, then there can be an issue. As I mentioned earlier, there's a UK population is aging, so the demand for things such as implants will certainly grow. More and more people are doing private care. There's more need for hygiene, and there are technological advances occurring. So people want more for themselves in their mouths. More types of treatments can be offered quicker, faster, perhaps even at lower costs as well. So it's a favourable market. There's an interesting market, and people still want to be in the dental market. In addition, customers are, or clients or patients, however you want to call them, are usually favourable. They have loyalty to a practice, and most patients who go to a dental practice and who do see a practice every year, will keep coming back and forth to each practice. So if you're looking to sell your practice, what do you need to do? Well, firstly, you need to have your accounts in place and ready. You're not going to sell without any accounting information. You need to make sure your staff contracts are in place. You need to make sure your property lease is in place if you're sending a lease or a freehold, and maintain and increase your income to a good level so it makes it more attractive to a prospective buyer. At the same time, if you can, make it less dependent on yourself, because where we find challenges in selling practices when it's very much dependent on one man or one person in that practice, and if that person walks out the door, then the practice isn't half as valuable. So I hope I haven't put you to sleep, and good old Boris is there perhaps yawning and Brexit is making you yawn, but I've also then put some tips together on, if you're thinking of selling over the next 12 months, 6 to 12 months, it's well worth looking at these ideas, the tips, because this is what we've seen time and time again. If you're going to build a business and make a successful business of it, this is what can certainly help. So tip 1 is to hire and retain superstars. That's what I'm saying, hire and retain superstars. Very simple term, but actually very difficult to do. So you want to recruit the right people and make sure the right people on the bus are with you going on the journey where you're trying to take your business to. Never hire because you have to. Hire someone that's going to make a difference to your practice, okay? And even if you have to hold off hiring, wait, hire the right people. Pay well, and motivate individuals with the right incentives and exciting opportunities. Very easy to say on a slide, I appreciate that. The actual reality of doing this is actually bloody difficult. I know that from experience. Within our businesses, we employ over 40 odd people. It's still a small business, but it's not always easy. Not always easy. Number 2, and this is perhaps what you guys will know better than anyone else, is always put your patients first, or put your customers first. Make your patients feel valued, not just like another patient. Look after really special patients, as they will be your referrers. Build a culture of care and patient service. Make your patients feel special. And by getting the basics right and hiring the right team in the first place. So in order to make your patients put first, you need to make sure you've got the right superstars in place to actually always put the patients first. So really important point, number 1 and number 2. Number 3, and this all comes from leadership, take your team where you want them to go. They aren't going to go on their own. You need to lead them down that route. And if you have the wrong team already in place, don't bother starting leading down the way. Change that team. And if the qualities of a great team, in my experience, a great listener, and your team will and if you listen to them, they will tell you what needs to be done, and then they will support you in being a great leader. So you can't do it on your own, but the team need someone to follow, okay, and someone to take the opportunity at the helm, which would be yourself. Number 4, yes, I'm an accountant. I have to put this in there. Know your numbers. Make sure you are always shopping around. Negotiate costs with suppliers. Agree in high-value materials. Set a budget and stick to it. And beware of buy one, get one free offers as well. Okay. Something I will mention briefly now is that we are in the throes of starting up a buying group under the Samara Dental Partners part of the business. So watch this space. So if you're looking to become part of a buying group, get better discounts on all the suppliers that you get, get in touch. We are very actively building this side of the business because we feel that particularly individual practices get a raw deal. Corporates can negotiate because they've got hundreds of practices or dozens of practices, so they can negotiate a good deal. But by building our own umbrella of a buying group, we feel that we can actually help our clients save a lot of money. Number 5, and this is something very important as well in this day and age, embrace digital marketing. A website, SEO, pay-per-click, all these things, social media, reviews. This is a whole complete business in itself, trying to build a successful digital brand. But if you get this right, everything else will follow through, and that ends up getting you the right type of clients who will want the type of dentistry that you want. So 5 tips that I think are very important if you're trying to build value in a business and create a business which is more valuable to any potential buyer. So if you've got a practice, certainly think about 3 actions you can take tomorrow. Get your account to look at where you can cut costs. Assess yourself online and see how your marketing's going. Where do you show on the pages? Do you show up at all? Be honest, look at your team and see if they aren't the right people. Make a change or make some changes. 3 simple actions, but really important to do. Only you can make those changes though. So recently, some transactions that we've been involved in, a practice in Hertfordshire, a very big practice we just sold to a growing corporate. I think about 8 or 9 surgeries from memory now. Low patient base, a nice part of Hertfordshire. We sold for circa £2.5 million, okay, mixed NHS and private. This is a private practice, again, we sold recently, and this is all in the summer months, for over 1.2. Practice 3 down in Surrey, again, we sold this very recently to a growing corporate group. So we've got a very real experience, and we typically deal with only practices that may be turning over 500k turnover. So value-ish in the realms of $1 million plus is where our market is, where we work with clients. Anything much smaller than that, we tend to not actually be specialists in, and we can't really help you particularly well on that either. So how can we help sellers? We can certainly do a free valuation and tell you what we think your practice is worth in the marketplace. Help you then, if you decide to go with us, to get you the best deal in the market, and at the same time help you lower your costs through increasing your patient numbers, getting marketing, and all those other things. So we can help you. We're there all the way. We can help you across the board to improve the performance, which then increases your EBITDA, your profitability, which ultimately increases the value of your business. If you're a buyer, we can help you find a product practice through our associate buyer service. We can help you review any practices you're looking to consider. We can help you with all the financing and raising finance at competitive terms, and we can help you do the due diligence of any practice you're buying. And that last point is very important. I've seen too many people buy practices just on the whim. Oh, I buy this practice, it's a good fit for me and it's near me. Do your due diligence, check everything out, check the financials, check the legals, check the CQC, check everything, okay? How else can we help you? Well, we're not just buyer brokers, we are accountants, chartered accountants, in fact, nationally, covering from Scotland all the way down to the south coast and everywhere in between. We deal with individual practice owners, we deal with individual associates, we deal with quite significant groups. Common thread, they're all dentists. So we know dentistry inside out. We're also involved as accountants, we're experts in tax as well. And one other point is we are finance people. We can help you raise finance. Mentioned it very briefly earlier. We are now in the throes of launching our Samara Dental Partners. This is a new part of the business which we will be growing and supporting, and it kind of adds on to what we do already. So we already provide back office and accountancy and payroll solutions, but now we'll be able to supply our clients buying group house, where they'll be able to buy supplies and kit and everything like that at much better terms, because we will have a buying agreement in place with key suppliers, so where we can get discounts. In addition, we can then provide marketing support, and this is an exciting part of the business where we're taking the business to. If you're interested in becoming a partner, get in touch and we will share more information, and there will be more information on our website coming out quite soon. New website currently evolving, changing. Have a look, please do. We cover accounts, tax, practice sales, raising finance, coaching, a whole range of things. I won't dwell on that now, but in summary, we want to tell you that you need to be inspiring your team, you need to be hiring your superstars, put your patient first, get a grip on the numbers, and build a strong digital brand. Once you have this right, then you have a very valuable practice that we can help sell on the best terms available, whether there's any Brexit deal or no Brexit deal, okay? The key is, if you've got a good quality business, making good profits, and there's further potential to add to it, someone will buy it, okay? And someone will pay a very handsome price for buying it. So my view is, yes, we can help you sell practices, great, and we're very good at that, we're actually excellent at doing that, but where we really think you need to focus on, if you're not ready there yet, is to get these aspects right, get your team right, get your superstars in place, get the numbers right, build that brand, make sure things are being delivered, make sure you're running a really tight ship, because then that's where people will want to put their money and buy and invest. I hope it's giving you a little bit of flavour of what you should be doing in this marketplace. I'm contactable on the following details. Delighted to help my team, myself, Nigel, Juliet, Farisa, Idel, David, Sakib, all of us are there to help you to expand and to make the decision whether you want to sell your practice now or in the later, or if you're looking to buy a practice now or later as well. Lastly, it's not all work. It's been going half an hour. Have some fun whilst also helping others. On a side note, just a plug for a charity that I'm actually actively involved in. I'm off to Tanzania on Sunday with Bridge to Aid, where I'm a trustee of. Excellent work that they do by helping people getting out of dental pain and training people to get out of dental pain. I will be doing a webinar when I'm back on what I did and what I saw out there. So please check out the website if you're looking to do something different and help others as well. Fantastic charity to get involved in. I hope you do, okay? Any questions before I wrap it up? Let me check. So I've got one question here saying, what is the kind of, are we seeing a multiple of EBITDA rising? In truth, I think it's stuck around the 5 or 6 mark for the time being. It hasn't changed significantly in the last, 6 to 12 months. It hasn't dropped. As I said earlier, the groups that are demanding a bigger premium, so even get over 10 times, even 11 times, I've heard recently, where there's a group, sizable group, people will buy practices which have a nice premium associated with them in terms of having a nice platform for someone to buy. Other question is, well, the question I'm not clear about, but my understanding is that how long does it take to sell a practice? Well, if everything's in order and everything's neatly organised, and I would suggest you get yourself in order, get your business ready, like your finances in place, leases are right, everything's in order, and it's performing well, then practice. I think you should give yourself about 6 months to be able to sell it. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter, but I think 6 months may be a realistic time frame. Any other further questions? I think I have managed to put everyone to sleep. So I hope you've found this webinar useful. I will obviously be recording this, and this will be going on our blog. But if you've got any questions, you know where we are. Drop me an email, I will be away though from next week, as I've just said, in Tanzania. I'll be picking my emails if I can get a connection, but my wonderful team and everyone there will be able to help. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much. Bye. Good night.